The Way of Love for the Lord, Chapter 10. 2 Days When I Couldn't Forgive. April 30th, 1981. That nightmare of a day had passed, but it was still hard for me to offer it up with some to go, as if I were loved by my mother-in-law who seriously injured my mother. Before I knew God, was there ever a time in my life when I held resentment towards someone, even when I've been beaten to death countless times? There was a time when my mother had prepared my mother-in-law's 60th birthday banquet with utmost sincerity. Over several days, she worked hard with the help of her sisters. But the very next day, my mother-in-law came early to my beauty parlor and pushed my mother away, seriously injuring her when she couldn't even say, "You must have worked hard for this." My mother-in-law had said before her birthday, "Let us get together and have a light meal instead of a party." Despite this suggestion, my mother still held a party with the utmost devotion with no help from my husband's family members. At the time, my youngest son was 1 year old, so I asked my mother-in-law if she can come to my house one day before her birthday to take care of him at least. She replied to me, "Of course." But she came with her children around noontime on her very birthday. There was one visitor who was looking for raw rice wine. I asked my third brother-in-law to buy 2 quarts of it since I was short-handed. But he still requested 41 for its price. Even though there were many siblings-in-law, none of them helped us, but I offered it up with some to go, as if I were loved by them. I couldn't bear to see that my mother, who had prepared my mother-in-law's birthday banquet with utmost devotion, had to suffer from the very person she tried to please, not due to any fault of her own. If my husband, who knew all this was happening, just said one word like this, "Honey, since we were young, is there any way other than to endure this situation and offer it up? Let's offer up well." My heart would have melted like the snow in spring. Instead, he got angry with me and did not want to bring up this issue at all. How happy I would be now if I had married an orphan instead, and could attend only to him wholeheartedly. It was the first time since my marriage that this kind of thought ran through in my mind. How diligently I had worked until then, without sparing myself, willing to risk my life in order not to be called a child without a father, or a daughter of a widow. As I led a lonely life only with my mother, I had chosen to marry my husband, with his parents and many siblings, so that I might live happily together with them. As I had chosen this way, I had obeyed my mother-in-law and lived diligently since the day of my marriage to pay her debts, to the extent that I tightened my belt and even skipped meals. I had worked without breaks like a cow, taking charge of numerous household matters as the eldest daughter-in-law. My mother-in-law, however, took for granted whatever I, her eldest daughter-in-law, had done for the family, saying, "If I were not here, you should still be doing all these things by yourself." On the other hand, She would praise her other younger daughters-in-law in front of me, the one who paid her countless debts, until she ran out of praises for whatever they did, even if they were trivial. But I never felt disappointed because I joyfully had done what I was supposed to do. There was nothing that my husband inherited from his parents, though he was the eldest son. Rather, my mother-in-law didn't even give back anything that I had brought into the marriage. My mother had collected furnishings for my marriage since I was young, and she handmade many silk, remy fabric, hemp cloth, etc. goods for the occasion. I brought all this with me to my marriage. But among all of them, my mother-in-law didn't even let me use the blanket that we needed to use right away for sleep, nor any pillow among the 11 pieces that I brought. Instead, she used all of them in other places. I felt so sorry to my mother, who had to buy all the household goods again for me. But I have lived without any disappointment. Despite all this, she injured my mother so seriously. The one who had made all her efforts to prepare her in-law's birthday banquet. My mother had lived only for me until then, undergoing many hardships since she became a young widow. When I left behind all other good offers for marriage and came to marry a most complicated family, my mother said to me, "As I know you will do well in everything, I'm not worried about you. Just buy me some fermented fish when I go to your house." However, since I was married to the eldest son among 8 children from the declining head family, I couldn't treat my mother well, and could never even buy the fermented fish for her. Rather, my mother only worked hard for my in-laws. But how could this happen? Even though I was humiliated, insulted, cheated a great amount financially, and scammed by people in my life, I have lived the life of Semchigo, forgiving all of them. More than anything, I couldn't bear that my husband had no empathy at all. I thought he would at least understand me.